Welcome to Sassy, Soulful, and Sensitive, a podcast for us introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive people. I'm your host, Cam Nichols, and together we're going to explore the strengths and struggles that come along with our sensitivity and learn how to trust our intuition and trust our voice. Let's dive in. What's up, Buttercups? How you feeling? All right, so in the face of life's challenges, resilience plays a very, very crucial role in determining how we navigate and overcome obstacles. And this is especially true for us who experience the world more intensely, such as highly sensitive people. You know, people like us. So today we're going to be talking about long-term versus short-term resilience and what that's like just navigating life's challenges with the sensitivity. So the analogy that actually sparked the idea of this podcast, I was in a client session and I was comparing resilience to memory. So just like we have short-term and long-term memory that serve like different functions in our lives, we also have short-term and long-term resilience that play out in our lives, especially when it comes to accomplishing our goals, especially when they're big goals, right? So understanding the nuances of long-term and short-term resilience can help us better manage our responses to stress and to adversity. They can help us with self-compassion and confidence, and ultimately they lead to improved mental health and overall well-being. So how does being highly sensitive really affect resilience? And so let's define what resilience is. So resilience is the ability to adapt, recover, and grow in the face of adversity, challenges, or stress. It's not about avoiding difficult situations, but rather about developing the capacity to weather storms and emerge stronger on the other side. So for those with heightened sensitivity, resilience takes on almost like this added dimension. It's about navigating a world that can often feel super overwhelming while also honoring our own unique perceptions and our own unique needs. So what is long-term resilience and why is it important to us? So long-term resilience, it's like running a marathon, right? It's about maintaining stamina and focus and determination over an extended period of time, often in the pursuit of significant goals or just in response to prolonged challenges. So this type of resilience, it's characterized by a few different things. So 1, persistence in the face of repeated setbacks. We all have them. 2, the ability to see the bigger picture. 3, a growth mindset that views challenges as opportunities for learning. 4, the capacity to adapt strategies without losing sight of the ultimate goal. And, 5 and 6 are specifically for us sexy people with heightened sensitivity. So long-term resilience also includes 5, honoring one's emotional needs while pursuing goals, and 6, developing strategies to manage intense experiences over time. So let's talk about how we can build long-term resilience while we're working in challenging situations or challenging goals. So I want you to consider the following example. This is an example of long-term resilience because a client I'm working with is writing a grant proposal for a research project. And if you've ever written a grant proposal, the process is lengthy, it's complex, it's fraught with various roadblocks. And as someone who experiences the world intensely, they feel the pressure of writing the grant, right? This is a big deal for them. And maybe you can relate if you've tried to do something similar, like something that's difficult or takes a long time or is very complex, right? Every time they hit a roadblock in the writing process, they feel an urge to put their hands up and just throw their hands up in frustration and then seek out permission from other people to just quit, not submit the stuff. However, when that permission is granted, something interesting happens. So instead of giving up, they actually recommit to writing their grant proposal. And there's this new, renewed excitement and an attitude of I actually want to do this. And this pattern very well demonstrates long-term resilience. So here's why. So first, they're acknowledging difficulty. So by seeking permission to quit, the client is honestly confronting the challenges that they're facing. Like, this acknowledgement is crucial in the long-term resilience process, especially for those who feel as deeply as we do. It's not something that we can skip over. We can't just skip over the deep feeling. It's like jumping a huge chasm, like a giant canyon, if you will. Like, it's just not something that's going to happen, right? So second, within that, there's some emotional processing. The act of seeking permission allows the client to kind of process their frustration and their doubt rather than suppressing these feelings and trying to push through. So this, again, is particularly important for us who experience emotions intensely. Again, is this something you can relate to? I know I can. So third, it also speaks to this idea of autonomous decision making. So when given the option to quit, the client chooses to continue. So this autonomous decision reinforces their commitment to the goal, and it can be especially empowering for us who might sometimes feel at the mercy of our sensitivities. So fourth, they have a renewed commitment. Like, each time they decide to continue, they're essentially recommitting to their goal, strengthening their resolve. Like, the process of reframing and recommitting is super powerful in resilience building for our sensitive brains, because we need that repetition in order to create that change. That's what we're doing here. And then fifth, learning and adaptation. So with each cycle of challenge and recommitment, the client learns more about the grant writing process and their own capabilities in doing so. So it enhances their skill for the future obstacles, because these same obstacles are going to come up, but they're going to approach them just a little bit different every single time. And for those who process experiences deeply, this is what leads to valuable insight. And it's a shit ton of personal growth, and it enhances the skill set we're attempting to get better at. So this client example is such a wonderful example that illustrates how long-term resilience isn't about never faltering or feeling discouraged. Instead, it's about developing a process to work through the feelings and continually realign with one's goals, with one's values, while also honoring one's emotional needs and sensitivity. Right? It's not black and white. It's a full spectrum of color we're experiencing, and we are here to work on embracing it. So, now let's talk about what short-term resilience is and why we also need that. Because while long-term resilience helps pursue extended goals and navigate prolonged challenges, short-term resilience is kind of like our day-to-day cushion against stress and minor setbacks. So it's like the psychological equivalent of shock absorbers on a car. So it just helps us smoothly navigate the bumps and the potholes, just those things that we're working with on a daily basis. So short-term resilience is characterized by the capacity to self-regulate emotions and behaviors in the moment, quick recovery from minor setbacks or irritations, flexibility in responding to unexpected changes. And so again, for those of us with lovely heightened sensitivity, it also involves, specifically for us, managing sensory input to prevent overwhelm, creating strategies to transition smoothly between activities, and honoring the need for downtime and reflection. So this always, every time I'm talking and differentiating regular resilience versus HSP resilience, the question always comes up why do HSPs get so overwhelmed? Why do they get overwhelmed so easily? And how can they really cope with that? And to understand the importance of short-term resilience in that question, I want to give you an example. I want to examine a situation where that short-term resilience was actually depleted. So I want you to imagine a scenario. And this is my real life scenario, so maybe you can imagine yourself in it as well. But imagine the scenario. You're rushing from work to a doctor's appointment. The transition is super hurried, and upon arrival to the doctor's office, you actually find several just unexpected changes in the office. Just nothing major, just some visual things. And you're oh, that's different. So in addition to that, you sit down in the waiting room and the noise level is super high. There's lots of loud talkers in the waiting room, and the lighting It's super, super bright. The sun is shining through the window. You got those annoying fluorescent lights overhead. Like, the lighting is uncomfortably bright. The noise is just reverberating in this room. And then the doctor, you go back, and they're super talkative, which just like prolongs the appointment, which, to be honest, do you ever really want to be at a doctor's appointment? I know I don't. And even though I love my doctor, like, they just like to talk a lot, which prolongs the appointment and makes this whole thing just last longer. And by the time you get home, you're so overwhelmed. It's your turn to cook dinner, and you lash out at your partner due to being dysregulated. Like I said, this was totally my scenario. This happened. It was very interesting to like take a step back afterwards and like examine this, because this scenario illustrates a breakdown in short-term resilience. So let's examine it. So rapid transitions, that rush shift from work to appointment did not allow my normal like mental preparation or decompression, which is particularly important for people like me and us who need time to process changes. It also talked about sensory overload, bright lights and loud noises. They created that physically stressing environment, which can be especially challenging for us with sensory sensitivities. And to make it worse, I was trying to do some stuff like work stuff on my phone. It did not work out great. It was difficult, right? Then there was communication overload. Like, the doctor's excessive talking added to just like that mental strain of me trying to like pay attention, especially, again, for those of us who need time to process information. That is super important. Like, there was a cumulative stress level that happened. Like, each of those factors, it just built upon one another, and it just gradually eroded the capacity to cope. And for individuals who experience the world intensely, like in this example, like that accumulation happens more quickly and more powerfully than for our non-sensitive counterparts, right? All of this led to emotional dysregulation, and the result for me in this scenario, like, was the inability to manage emotions effectively, leading to me snapping at my husband. Like, this dysregulation can become more pronounced in those situations because the emotions are felt deeply and fast, right? So that's an example that demonstrates how a series of relatively minor stressors can accumulate, building on top, like compounding and building on top of another, overwhelming the short-term resilience and leading to emotional dysregulation. So it highlights the importance of maintaining and replenishing our capacity for short-term resilience in the day-to-day life that we have, especially for us who experience the world more intensely. You guys getting a theme here? Like, we just get to live this beautifully rich and intense life, and that comes with certain challenges as well as some beautiful things as well. So how are long-term and short-term resilience like connected for us? So while it's useful to distinguish between long-term and short-term resilience, it's also important to recognize that they are very interconnected and they are mutually influential, right? Short-term resilience can provide a really stable foundation for long-term resilience. When we're better equipped to handle daily stressors, we have more energy and more resources to devote to long-term challenges. And equally, when we're committed to our goal or our mission, our long-term resilience becomes the foundation that helps us deal with failures along the way that actually, like, those failures like are the things that slowly erode our short-term resilience. So they're kind of interdependent. And then the skills developed through long-term resilience, such as perseverance, adaptive problem solving, like those things can enhance our capacity for short-term resilience. And all of this kind of creates like a feedback loop. So success in managing short-term stressors can boost our confidence, contributing to greater long-term resilience in and of itself. So, and conversely, like achieving long-term goals enhances our belief in our ability to handle day-to-day challenges, right? It just creates that feedback loop. And both types of resilience draw from the same pool of mental and emotional resources. So overextension in one area can deplete resources available for the other. And this is particularly true when we're in those moments of experiencing things intensely and deeply, because we might need some more recovery time, right? So we need to be aware of our resources and how we're managing those. And then what begins as a test of short-term resilience can evolve into a challenge requiring long-term resilience, and vice versa, right? So going back to the example of my client who's writing the grant, right? The grant needs long-term resilience, and every time they hit a roadblock, they're noticing that short-term resilience being depleted, right? But they're interdependent. So let's talk about some strategies to improve our resilience, because to thrive both in day-to-day life in pursuit of long-term goals, like it's crucial, it's absolutely crucial to develop just both this short-term and long-term resilience. So here are some strategies to enhance both. So enhancing long-term resilience, let's look at those first. So we need to set clear and meaningful goals. So having a clear sense of purpose fuels our perseverance in the face of obstacles. Like, make sure that these goals align deeply with your values and your passions. That's very, very important. And second, we need to develop a growth mindset. So this is where we start to view challenges as opportunities for learning and personal development. And this can be particularly powerful when we tend to reflect deeply on our experiences, which can lead to mental spiraling if it's not managed, right? We want to avoid the mental spiraling, even though sometimes it's going to come, right? So just be mindful of your reflection and how that plays into developing a growth mindset. And when we do start to spiral, it's important that we build a support network. Like, surround yourself with people who encourage and support your long-term objectives and goals, and they understand your unique needs and sensitivities. And I can't emphasize how important having your support network is. They provide so much. So another thing is, again, going back to practicing self-reflection, how often are you assessing your progress and celebrating your wins? And are you intentionally adjusting your strategies? Reconnect with your motivations. This comes naturally to many people, while others, it just doesn't. And it's okay. That's not a right or a wrong, but just notice what it is for you. But if we're clear up front with ourselves, we can then leverage that as a strength, right? And then you hear me say it all the time: celebrate the small wins, acknowledge progress along the way to maintain motivation. Let celebrations be energizing and fun. Sometimes we need to stop focusing on the end result and just focus on the next step and celebrating the step that we just came from. So now let's talk about how we can develop or maintain short-term resilience. So first, mindfulness practices, whether that is meditation or some other type of mindfulness exercise, that's going to improve your emotional regulation, which again is going to help with feeling things so intensely. Next is stress management techniques. We need to learn and practice stress reduction, that deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation, or there's so many different ones out there. And again, these are really important tools for managing sensory overload and external stimuli and just overall stress. And I have an entire toolkit ready for you inside the My Sensitive Self program. So if that's something that interests you, reach out, let's talk, because I have some very specific methods to help you through that. So next is establishing routines. Create stable daily routines that provide a sense of control and predictability. And this can be especially comforting for those of us who get over easily whelmed with change. So routines can be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Physical self-care. We need to prioritize our sleep and exercise and nutrition. And we just need to make sure that our bodies are equipped to handle stress, right? And there's things that we need to do to play into that and build that up. So pay attention to how different foods and activities affect your system. I know that's something that I'm working on personally, is noticing how my diet is impacting like my moods and my ability. Because when I physically don't feel well, it is so much harder for me to manage my thoughts and my emotions. So I invite you to do the same. Like, just notice how sleep and food and all that stuff, exercise, affects not just your physical state, but also your short-term resilience from a mental and emotional standpoint as well. I think it's also important to mention, like, that we need to create like a sensory friendly environment. So adjust your surroundings to suit whatever your sensory needs are, whether that's through lighting or noise control or texture choices. Figure out what that is for you. And then next, implement transition rituals. Develop small rituals to help you transition between activities, giving your system time to adjust. That's going to look different for every person. So again, figure out what that is for you. Like, resilience in both its long-term and short-term forms, like, is not an innate fixed trait, but it's more about building a set of skills and capacities that can be developed and strengthened over time. So by understanding the distinction between long-term and short-term resilience, we can more effectively target our efforts to build our overall capacity to face whatever challenges that we can foresee, or things that just arise that we can't foresee. So my grant writing client, again, is a beautiful example of the power of long-term resilience, demonstrating how persistence and the ability to recommit can lead to achieving these significant goals. And on the other hand, like, the doctor's appointment scenario just underscores the importance of that short-term resilience in managing those daily stressors and maintaining emotional equilibrium. So for those of us who experience the world more intensely, cultivating resilience is not about becoming less sensitive. Let me say that again. Cultivating resilience, both long-term and short-term, is not about becoming less sensitive. It's about learning to navigate the world while honoring and leveraging our unique perceptions and sensitivities. So by developing the strategies that respect our sensitivity, that respect ourselves while building resilience, that's what we can turn what some are seeing as a vulnerability into like this profound, beautiful strength. And ultimately, cultivating both types of resilience creates just this robust psychological foundation for yourself. And honestly, who doesn't need more of that in today's day and age? Am I right? So this balance allows us to pursue ambitious long-term goals while effectively navigating the day-to-day challenges that just pop up as we're going about life and the pursuit of these goals. Like, we don't have to hide. We get to live. By consciously working on both aspects of resilience, we can enhance our overall well-being, we can achieve our goals, and we can have a balanced, fulfilling, and just a really rich life. There is beauty in intensity. I want to offer that to you because I think oftentimes we feel intensity and like we shame ourselves for it, or we like beat ourselves down, or we try to hide, or we think that we shouldn't feel so intensely. And I just want to offer our intensity is something that allows us to be so rich in this life. So remember, resilience is not about never faltering or feeling stressed. It's about developing the skills to bounce back, learn from challenges, and just continue moving forward. So whether you're facing a minor daily annoyance that becomes a major annoyance or some major life obstacle, like, your capacity for resilience, both short-term and long-term, can make all the difference in how you experience and navigate life's journey. All right, my friend, thank you so much for being here. As always, remember, shining bright gives others permission to shine as well. Take care. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to learn how to find your voice and lean in more to the powerful force of nature that you know exists within you, head on over to coachwithcam.com and take the What Element Are You quiz. You'll discover how to align with your secret strength that you perceive as a weakness so you can break the cycle of doubt and step into your badassery. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to follow, rate, and review it on your favorite podcast platform, and share it with a friend or family member who you want to connect with on a deeper level. You'll be helping other sensitive folks like yourself and like me find and join our amazing community. So let's connect and support each other on this incredible journey.